Section 8.2 is probably the biggest, meatiest section in the whole module. If you understand Section 8.2, everything else will make sense as you move forward throughout this chapter, or this module. Section 8.2 is about factoring a trinomial. So let's first look at how we build up a trinomial, and then factoring it will be breaking it back down. So whenever we multiply a binomial times a binomial, we use the FOIL method, which is the distributive property. Right? We distribute x times 5, 2 times x, 2 times 5. Okay? First, outside, inside, last is just an acronym for the distributive property applied by the x and by the 2. So when I multiply these together, I get x times x is x squared, plus x times 5 is 5x, plus 2 times x is 2x, plus 2 times 5 is 10. And then I combine these two terms together, and I get x squared plus 7x plus 10. So we've built up a trinomial by multiplying two binomials together. Well, in lesson 8.2 or section 8.2, what we want to do now is undo this. We want to break this down and undo the distributive property or the FOIL method. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start here. This is going to be our starting point with a trinomial. And we're going to see if we can break that down into a binomial. Okay? Now, there are some nice relationships that happen. Think about how we get this last term. We multiply these two numbers together. So if we have an x squared plus a number times x plus a constant term, if we multiply these two numbers together, it always gives us that last term. So the last term is always the product of these two numbers. Look at the middle term. The middle term came from these two. Well, that's the sum of these two numbers. Outside plus inside gives me the sum of these two terms. So the last term is the product of my two factors or my two numbers. This number is the sum. So what I'm looking for is I want numbers that multiply to give me 10 that add to 7. So if I'm starting here and I want to factor it, what I need to do is think about factors of 10. There's 1 and 10, there's 2 and 5, and that's it. Well, 1 and 10 doesn't add up to 7, but 2 and 5 does. So if I'm breaking this down, this first term always breaks down into x times x. Since everything's plus, boom, we go there. Factors of 10, numbers that multiply to give me 10 but add to 7, are 2 and 5. Okay? So we're going to undo the distributive property. We're going to undo the FOIL method by taking this trinomial and breaking it down into a product of binomials. If I FOIL this, I get x squared minus 7x minus 4x plus 28. Okay? If I simplify that, I get x squared minus 11x plus 28. Add these two together to get negative 11x. So now if I'm starting here at x squared minus 11x plus 28, and I'm asked to just factor that, that means break it down into a product of two binomials. Everything we do in this section, the answer is going to be two binomials multiplied together. That's the biggest factoring that we're going to do. Okay? So now let's say I didn't see this being built up. I'm just looking at this number, and I want to break it down so that I get factors of this that add up to this. Now, factors of a positive that add up to a negative, those are both going to be negative numbers because a negative times a negative gives me a positive, a negative plus a negative gives me a negative. So I want to find factors of 28. So I use 1 and 28, but I'm going to use negative for both of them. Those don't add up to negative 11. Let me try 2 and 14. Those don't add up to negative 11. 3 doesn't go in. How about 4 and 7? Okay, 4 and 7, those do add up to negative 11. So this is going to factor into an x minus a 7 and an x minus a 4. It doesn't matter which one I put first. Okay? So I'll go in more detail in the next couple of videos about how to do the factoring. But what we're doing is we're looking for numbers that multiply to give me that last term, add to give me the middle term. Multiply to give me the last term, add to give me the middle term. And once I find those two key numbers, I can write my binomial.